that you see coming to pass before you, but you also have military prophecies that have to take place with Iran and the different countries over there gathering for Armageddon. And this whole collapse of the Eurozone is also part of the prophecy, of those different European nations being partly weak and partly strong, mixed with iron and clay. That's part of that prophecy too that has to be fulfilled.
Revelation 13, verse 14. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Now, the way they're going to push this chip is they're going to have pastors and ministers, and so-called religious people say that, because the question is going to come up whether that microchip in your hand or in your forehead is the mark of the beast in the book of Revelation. So you're going to have prominent pastors that are going to say, no, that's not the mark of the beast. I did a video where Pat Robinson said that, yes, you are going to get a microchip in your hand, but he said that's not talking about the mark of the beast.
Your hand is your action.
I'm gonna bring him up, John McCarthy.
The hand would mean you're given over.
The other one, John McCarthy, he said if you take the microchip, you're not going to be held responsible. You're not going to be judged for that. Something to that effect.
Don't you think?
So they're using these prominent figures, because just like they got prominent figures out there, Esau and these big mega televangelical churches that are lying to the people. Do you also have these Israelite Hebrew Israelite leaders, in these different other schools or groups that are also teaching people a bunch of lies, and telling them that the microchip is not the mark of the beast, because that is one thing that these devils are desperately pushing, to finally bring in the New World Order, which they've been wanting to have that thing in for the longest. But the Lord keeps throwing monkey wrenches in there for them. All right. This is it goes on to say RFID usage and support is increasing in Europe as the European Union will play an important part in the bringing into play and administering of the RFID chip worldwide, Revelation 13. And that's the main chapter, that brings the mark out. Other chapters, go into the word and definitions of certain key words in there, but the main chapter that brings the mark out is Revelation 13 and other books in Revelation, which tells you of the penalty for taking the RFID chip and tells you of the judgment that came upon the men of the Lord that didn't take it, certain ones of them. Did you ask something, Apostle Gabar? No. All right. So that was the end of chapter 2, going into chapter 3. It says the mark and the American connection. Legislative measures for RFID application and usage is already being advocated for in the United States.
I got something. Okay, this is from Before It's News, and this is an article from December 1st, 2013, and it says pastor receives, this should be popping up. Pastor receives Obamacare RFID chip and boasts to his congregation. John McCarthy, a pastor John McCarthy, declares you can be saved after you receive the mark. Outrage. It says, and like I said, going back to that term, the way this thing is going to be pushed is through that herd mentality. It says we all know this was coming. We just didn't know how soon. Pastors across America are being implanted with the Obama RFID chip, a.k.a. mark of the beast, and promoted to their congregation.
New ways to safeguard and identify all those things that make each of us unique, our faces, even our fingerprints, even our eyes.
So now this shit is acting up.
With more on the future
Because Satan is the prince of the
and
power of the air.
Costello.
But that's all I really need.
The year is 2017.
You can do the research yourself.
Unconscious with no ID or medical history, but Thanks to a microchip under your skin, it's all there. Science fiction 20 years ago, but a biometric reality today.
The technology is based on answering one simple question. Am I who I say I am?
Already, fingerprints and iris scans verify.
Anyway, just look up this guy's name,
airports.
Pastor
Within
John
10 years,
MacArthur.
That technology may be even more
And then you can
widespread.
put in,
And look for more complex facial
can you be
recognition
saved if you take the
programs
mark of the
that
beast?
scan a crowd of
So they have
thousands looking for a single terrorist.
pastors out there that are being
Today's
trained
facial recognition
to teach
software
that
starts
their
with the
congregation,
eyes, then
their
it
herd,
maps out the contours of the face and
that
compares
if you take the mark of the,
against
or the
database
RFID
database
chip,
that's growing
it's
by
not
the day.
it's not
What's
the
next? At the University
end of the world
Bath
for you.
in England,
All right?
researchers predict big changes for
And that's why the
consumers.
Most High going to destroy a lot of people, man.
Completely of our wallets and
Chapter 3, the mark and the American connection. Legislative measures for RFID application and usage is already being advocated for in the United States. And then, like you see how all these protests are breaking out and different violent things are happening because they're paying these agent provocateurs to start this violence up so the cops can come in their riot uniforms and snatch people up, throw them into prison, to set the stage up for when they do this to the masses of the people. So they make things happen so that they could have the legislation already on the books, so they can have their justification. All they need is the right crisis, and they can bring in a national emergency.
Now, lots of protesters are throwing rocks at police.
It says, of late, several U.S. politicians and legislators support, endorse, and sanction the authorization of RFID for the sake of maintaining population control. And then these pastors, what they're doing is they're giving them certain scriptures to use, like Romans the 13th chapter, to justify that you have to listen to the government, but that's not what that scripture is saying.
Yeah, they call them the clergy response team.
It's pretty tense out here.
Push that about pushing the you got to listen to what the government says, and he broke that down wrong as well.
Continue to unfold. Police, I would say, still
herd mentality is a good asset to this man.
Not really engaging
It says,
with
and
these
monitoring the
protesters right now.
populace, particularly the so-called minority populace of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans of the nation of Israel. Psalm 64, 2-6, Psalms 83, 3-5, and Micah 2-1. The elites have coined the phrase population stabilization, which is the underlying basis for U.S. immigration reform. Targeting, and then it says targeting the so-called illegal aliens from Latin America, and that's what they're doing right now, because they're using this. They're trying to use that guys. If you in a foreign country and you want to come to this country to get jobs and all that, you have to take this microchip. That's being pushed on the Latin tribes heavy. It says in ancient Egypt, the Israelites began to multiply greatly in number. Exodus 1, 9-10, under bondage, causing concern amongst Pharaoh. Even now, at this moment in America, which is modern Egypt, Revelation 11 and 8, the elites are likewise uneasy and nervous. What are the intentions and plans of the elite bankers? And they see the different camps out there and how this truth is growing, who the real Israelites are, and this thing is gone global. You got people down in South America, Central America, Caribbean islands, are making comments on the video, some negative, some positive, saying some of them saying they believe that they're Israelites, and they're following the teachings of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai through the apostles, elders, and the men of Great Millstone that are out there teaching the word. It says a large and they get nervous. These elites are getting nervous. That's why they're trying to hurry up and push this thing on the Georgia Guidestones. And now they just came out with this super bug, that they said that this super bug that there's no antibiotics out there that can take this bug out. And that's going to probably be one of the things that they push to kill a lot of people. Because remember when you watch the movie I Am Legend, then people were put to death. And around the time where that movie Superman, Batman came out, which people back then thought it was a joke, but they actually already came out with that movie. That was around the time when this thing happened. So we're in that vicinity. We're in that time frame, and something is about to happen. Something big. It says a large granite stone monument known as a Georgia Guidestone stands in the U.S. state of Georgia, being a counterfeit imitation as if to mock the Heavenly Father. The elites have engraved their own 10 commandments or guidelines on the stone tablets. The first being to maintain humanity under 500 million, and it says in perfect balance with nature or something to that effect. Who made them the judge of that? How many people the earth can hold. No, what it is they want to have the numbers down enough to where they can control the people. And right now there's over 7.3, 7.4 billion people on the planet, and steadily increasing. To accomplish this, the elites must number the population, a practice in violation with the scriptures, 2 Samuel 24, 1-10, and 1 Chronicles 21, 1-8. The RFID microchip will function as a way for the government to poll, record, and tabulate the people for census and demographic statistical purposes. In an interview between talk radio host Alex Jones and businessman Aaron Russo in 2007, Russo revealed that the Rockefellers want everyone chipped with the RFID chip linked to personal finances. U.S. federal government lawmakers have incorporated the chip into legislation throughout several departments. Psalms 37 and 12, Psalms 64, 2-6, Psalms 83, 3-5, and Micah 2 and 1. The USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, is currently introducing and applying RFID technology to the food stamps program, also known as a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, Psalms 10, 2-10. So basically they got everything in place. They got everything in place, and they're using these different agencies to push this. And the more they push it, because right now it's a thing of they're getting people to they're putting all this stuff, information out there, so that people can get used to it, so they can readily accept it. Just like they're pushing this homosexual agenda out, lesbian agenda out, pedophilia, because according to the law now, pedophilia is no longer a crime. It's a sexual orientation. So they're pushing this stuff, so slowly but surely getting the minds people geared into accepting all of these things. As Apostle Tara spoke of earlier, the herd mentality. It says,
this is news on the RFID chip. It's not dated. It has to be new, but it says Venezuela will begin fingerprinting grocery shoppers to control how much food they buy. It says Venezuela's food storage is so bad the country is mandating that people scan their fingerprints at grocery stores in order to keep people from buying too much of a single item. And I mean, you can read the article on your own, but that's just one step closer to the actual chip, because they're going to go from fingerprinting to actually giving you chips. And they're eating birds and cats and dogs and eating leaves off the tree and whatever. So what do you think they're going to do? If they say, well, look, everything will go back to normal, but you got to take this chip. So they're using a crisis to make it happen.
And that's what these devils do. Now.
One of them said, never waste a good crisis. That was, I forgot the guy's name. Right, Rahm Emanuel, yeah, that's right, Mayor of Chicago.
This is Daniel chapter 8, verse 25. Now, this is dealing with Antiochus Epiphanes back then, but like the scriptures say, the things that were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. So this happened back then, during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, and it's going to happen now. Daniel 8:25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. And the policy is what? Pushing of this RFID chip, the different legislation, creating certain crisis, on the planet. This guy, the guy that killed Freddie Gray, the police officer that killed Freddie Gray, he got let off, without a scrap, nothing. He got let go free. You know, so all that stuff is building up, you know, to make this whole system implode within itself. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart. And by peace shall destroy many. And that's what's happening. By peace he's going to destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, which is Yahweh Shai, but he shall be broken without hand.
Actually, that quote was originally from Winston Churchill, who said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And Rahm Emanuel, so-called Jew, Jews that took that, claimed that to himself.
You know, because these so-called Jews, they have no creativity whatsoever. They have to steal everything from somebody else.
Well, Alex Jones would say different.
Oh, yeah. Well, Alex Jones is a shill, and that's why, he's a gatekeeper of the international bankers, the Illuminati, and the so-called Jews. You know, and I mean, I didn't see the interview yet, but I heard David Duke handed him his ass to him, you know, basically, on a platter, you know. Hot ass on a platter, you know. This is going back to the book. Let's see where I left off. Right here. It says, furthermore, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, approved the VeriChip in 2004. The VeriChip, formerly created by VeriChip Corporation, is now produced by the U.S.-based Positive ID Healthcare Company, a subsidiary of Digital Angel, which Digital Angel changed their name to Veritech Inc. I don't know if they changed it again, but the last I checked was Veritech, a networking and communication corporation developing GPS and RFID technology products, headquartered in Delray Beach, Florida. Additionally, the U.S. Department of Defense is using RFID technology in the U.S. military. Moreover, law enforcement and the criminal justice system are applying RFID technology. Yeah, and now I believe it was in the brothers did a video, I believe, out there in the UK, you know, which they've been pushing this for a long time, dealing with these inmates that they want to get let out early, some to that effect. They have to get a microchip, you know, so they're making this thing like a convenience thing. You know, if people want to get out a little early, they take the microchip. Like down in Venezuela, they're going to eventually push that microchip down there, you know. And here in America, when all hell breaks loose and they introduce that microchip to make things easier, people are going to take it because they're used to that easy life, that easy living. Using RFID and satellite GPS, global positioning system, in the investigation and prosecution of crimes by secretly placing concealed hidden transmitters to track suspects, Ezekiel 28:3, where it says that they're wiser than Daniel. And yes, that's dealing with Esau. RFID is also being used in the ankle monitors of individuals under house arrest. The chip is slowly being marketed and pushed into the mainstream and entertainment industry to acquaint, accustom, and familiarize the general public into accepting it. It was seen in films such as Demolition Man, Chip, and Mission Impossible, Tag, and in music videos such as the Lean Back video by rapper Fat Joe. You know, and that's what they're doing. They incrementally pushing it on the people, you know.
Yeah, here's another quote. This is supposedly from Rahm Emanuel. It says, "You never let a serious crisis go to waste," which is originally made by what's his name, Winston Churchill. And it says, and what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before. Like, for example, when the whole World Trade scenario took place, Baby Bush couldn't push the what was that called, the Patriot Act and declare war on Iraq. He couldn't do that. He had to use that crisis. All right. Now this crisis down here in Venezuela is just perfect to push that chip, because people's backs are to the wall, and they'd be willing to take that chip to go back to living a normal life.
This is 2 Ezra 15 and 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. And that's all these different uproars, race wars and all of that. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Because now when you look at, they were interviewing certain people down in Venezuela, and you could see the look of desperation in these people's faces. You know, they're saying, well, look, they're saying this, but, you know, they're not helping us with this, they're not helping us with that. We can't get, we can't get just the basic stuff. And then they said, they were saying, I guess, I think the guy that was interviewing her mentioned the military, the cops. He said, well, look, the military and the cops, they're stealing everything. They're the biggest thieves, because they got to protect themselves and their families. So they're not there to protect the people. They're there to protect themselves and their family. So there's a real spirit of a desperation down in Venezuela. Because whenever you have a crisis and people can't eat, people start bugging out. You could